My name's Stephanie Black. I'm the executive director here, the curator of the museum. How many have never been to the museum before? Well, welcome.
Alyssa, she's hiding. That's my neighbor. She's a newbie.
I wanted to come back with her son and her husband. They'd have a great time.
We have 6.5 acres of buildings and displays here at the museum. And at least one of them is included in the historical tour. I had the pleasure of working on this tour a little bit, and at this time I'm going to introduce Margaret Angel
And Mary Catherine.
Mary Catherine.
Sorry.
You're all bring Alex in earlier.
They're from the Dade City Merchants Association. Margaret has the Angel Tea Room. Mary Catherine has Lanky Lassie Shortbread downtown. And they're going to take it from here. So thank you.
And we're going to bring in Alex in earlier.
First of all, thank everyone for being so supportive of our downtown. And I wanted to tell you just very briefly why the Merchants Association is sponsoring this historical tour. It's a well-known fact that tourism is tied to history, and we realize that we have acres of diamonds here in our own backyard that we just needed to be able to tell the story in a way to bring people to downtown to support the local economy and to enjoy the charm that we have in Dade City. And so Mary Catherine and I began brainstorming on how we could do this, and one thing led to another, and she and I brainstormed, we talked, and I'll let her tell you where it went from there, and then it'll come back to me.
Yeah, so Margaret and I, ever since I moved in next door at Lanky Lassie's, we're trying to figure out, this is kind of in the height of COVID, how to bring people into our downtown. And the historical aspect was always a huge part of it. And my very phenomenal, wonderful neighbors, Dennis and Nancy Alfonso, I was over at their house one day and we were talking about Margaret and I's dilemma and how to do this, and they said, you know what we do on weekends where we don't really have anything set to do, we have this app called Florida Stories. And it's an app that has a whole list of historical cities throughout Florida that the Humanities Council has created this self-guided walking tour. So you can just pick whatever city you want, say I want to go to Tarpon Springs, go to Tarpon Springs, and you just go on your own self-guided tour. And I said, well, we need to have Dade City on this tour, I mean, we are this incredible gem of a city with a rich history. I didn't know how rich it was until this endeavor, but we need to be on this list. So I called, I emailed, and those are really the only two options, the Humanities Council, and I couldn't get any type of response at all. And after losing my corporate career during COVID, and now my livelihood depended on people coming into downtown Dade City, it was very important to me that we hone in on something that is so unique, which is our history, to bring people into our city and teach our leaders, our commissioners, that we need historical preservation guidelines so we can preserve our buildings. So after not being able to get any type of response from the Humanities Council, I said, well, you know what? My childhood friend, Mamie's mom, Mrs. Wise, Madonna Wise, she wrote all of these historical books, Dade City, Wesley Chapel, Zephyr Hills. She wrote The Haunted History of Pasco County, The Trailblazing Women of Tampa Bay. I said, I bet she would be a phenomenal person to reach out to and see if we can just create our own thing. So this was kind of just sitting down and talking and trying to figure it out.
Okay, and being entrepreneurs and business women, we said, let's just do it ourselves if we can't get Florida cities to respond. So we invited Madonna to come for a cup of tea, lured her into the project.
With a little bit of shortbread, too.
So anyway, we were delighted when she accepted the challenge. And I must tell you, I absolutely must stress that there is no way this project could have ever gotten off the ground without the hours and hours of research, the work that Madonna did. Mary Catherine and I can make shortbread and tea, but we were not prepared to write the history of this tour. But Madonna did a fabulous job, and we owe her a great debt of appreciation for that. So. esteemed writers have said, it takes a village. It really, really did take a village to pull this off. Because the team got bigger as we uncovered needs that we had. And there were many, many people out there that had stories to tell, important stories that we needed to include in the tour. And what started off as just a small idea began to really blossom into what it has become today. And we're very, very proud of the way this has come together. So before I go any further, let's let Madonna come up. And we've asked her to tell you about the various different people that she interviewed, the different efforts that she made to bring this together. And unfortunately, we did lose some people along the way. History is not something that stays active a long time, so you have to grab it when you can. So Madonna, please come and tell everybody about those tireless hours that you spent.
We do have a handout, if you'd like, maybe I can just kind of pass around if you want. How could one say no to these lovely ladies? And it is true. Mary Catherine and my daughter Mamie grew up together, and we had many birthday parties, swim parties, crazy activities,
A lot of horse riding.
Lots of horse riding. I should tell you the story about the time I got up in the morning and I couldn't find Mary Catherine, and she was out riding a horse, and she was maybe 8, I don't know, 10. I was like, ah! Anyhow, I love history, and just to let you know, I was a history teacher. I have a degree in history. I taught history for a number of years. But I have always loved stories. At my grandfather's table, Ernie can tell you, he lived to be well into his 90s, and I just want to hear the stories. The more colorful they are, the better. And so that's always been what has attracted me, and I really love genealogy. And if I can ever help anybody with any of that, let me know. I'm very willing to do that. I wanted to, when Mary Catherine and Margaret asked me to come in, that was April of 2022, so we've been working on this quite a while. I thought about how to do this, because I have written several books and I've kind of put stories together and sequences together and thematic lessons together and that kind of thing. The first thing I did was walk around Dade City. This is my husband Ernie, and he is a retired biology teacher and media specialist. We have walked through Dade City, I would hate to say how many times, not necessarily for this, but it was very, very difficult schematically to figure out how to do this. So the first thing I did was walk around. We have some existing resources, but there aren't a lot of resources on the businesses, the history of the businesses. And from there, I always look at property records. But in Pasco County, property records usually only go back to about 1950, so you're kind of sunk with finding earlier. Then I will do a scan of newspapers.com. You have to be very careful because of 9/11 addresses. All of the addresses were changed after 9/11. So it's emphatic if you're doing a history search of a building, you have to find out what the previous address was. From there, I usually go to the Dade City Banner. I personally have the whole Dade City Banner because I helped some with that. But now I'm using the Hillsborough Library site because I find it to be the easiest one to use. That can take, our mayor, our honorable mayor was just saying he was researching Dr. Knoll. You can find it, but you better be willing to invest a few hours, right? It's going to be. But the banner is amazing. Society columns, everything you want to find. And then I do a lot of interviews. I wanted to tell you tonight, though, I would not ever do anything in Dade City for history if I did not thank Eddie Herman. When we worked on the Dade City book in 2013, I think I talked to Eddie every single day, wouldn't you say, Ernie? We got to be the best of friends. He is the most, we lost him a few years ago, but he is was the most extraordinary historian. Jeff Miller was my good friend, and we worked on 5A a lot, and we also talked probably 2 times a week. Bill Smith, Wayne will know this, but with the Wesley Chapel book, he also became a surrogate father to me. We talked all the time. I think history just bound us together. Bill Dayton, anytime I run into difficulties, I walk down Meridian, I find him on I do have his phone, sometimes he'll answer his phone, but I find him on his porch, and we talk about it, and then we try to figure it out. And usually we come to some consensus. Irene Dobson was one of my dear friends. Frank Laumer, you know, if you want to know about Dade City, he was the expert, you know, on Major Dade, and the naming of it, and he knew everything about everything. Rosemary Trotman wrote the history of Zephyr Hills, but a lot of it is about Dade City. I am so old that I knew her. We were in a teachers group together when I first started teaching, and she and another lady used to pick me up to go to the teacher sorority. I was always a little afraid to ride with them, but she just knew everything about everything. Some of the other ones, Clark Hobby, I knew him as a lawyer way back, but he is on the board of Stephanie's museum here, the Pioneer Museum. And he was a treasure trove of information, a lot of stories and information. Buddy Jones, Eddie took me to see Buddy Jones, who owned the 1892 jail for several decades, but he said, that's what Eddie did with this book. He would say, Madonna, you got to meet this person. So he takes Ernie and I both to meet Buddy, and Buddy gave us a number of records and things. But we learned about the jail from him and from Bill Dayton. Carol Jeffers Hedman, her articles, her wealth of articles for the Tribune, she's wrote later some for the Pasco News, they are so well researched, and she has these colloquial anecdotes that tell you really feel like you know the people. You'll find in anything I ever do, I quote her. I just think she's marvelous. Oliver and Barbara DeWitt saved the Dade City pictures, and you can't do anything in Dade City if you don't honor them. They saved the whole collections. The Helen X. Sparkman, they took them out of the trash. They're fantastic. Virginia McHenry got me into the Extension Office. Would you believe the Pasco County Extension Office has shelves and shelves of picture books, and you'll find a lot of those in my books. Adam Watson at the memory side of the State Archives. Dorothy Newhofer at St. Leo, she has also passed away. Nick Linville in Zephyr Hills, he's not personally an archaeologist, but he works for an archaeological company. So when we were on this book, I saw this the other day on something, and we were debating when were indigenous people in this area. It's before 10,000 BCE. And he got me into, the two of us got into UF with the experts on this to figure out exactly when people were here. And they needed to be included. We don't have pictures of them, we don't have insights, but he was remarkable. I think you all know that Scott Black is also an extraordinary historian. And that leads me to, when I had written 2 books on Zephyr Hills, and the publishing company wanted me to write a book on Dade City. And of course, you know, there was the 9 Mile War and that kind of thing. And I had actually taught at Pasco High by that point in time. I was like, I don't want to do this unless I have the blessing. So I went to Scott, and he said, well, let's go see the Historic Preservation Committee. And I really want to thank them because at that time, I'm blocking on the fellow that took me there, who was just wonderful and shared all the resources. But we went before the Historic Preservation Committee. Laura Beagles has been the chair for a number of years. And I said, what do you think about a history book on Dade City? Would you believe they gave me a list? They wanted, this was the first thing, Susan Mason, who does a lot of volunteering here, and she's a retired teacher from the Sistrunk family. She said, you have to have the Alpha Cirrhosis Society in it. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, my grandmother was part of it.
Oh, great.
I would love to know more about it.
Well, she says that, and I think I covered it quite well, but I went, what is that? Well, come to find out, it was the forerunner of every women's group in this whole area. They were a remarkable group of people. We found pictures and so on. They also said to me, I thought this was really brilliant of them, they goes, you need to go see Margarita Romo. We want that, we want the farm workers in this book. And I knew Margarita Romo from my work in the school system, but she let us scan everything she had. And on my next book is Margarita Romo's story. If you see her, she wants me to write a book about her, but she doesn't want to be in it. She's that humble. So I pitched it with, well, we'll make you an angel. It will be a fictional book. So, oh, wait, it's a long story. But anyhow, they also wanted me to see Burma's Matthews as well. And, you know, over time I've worked a lot with Imani too, because we really need to, we need to be able to walk in each other's shoes and understand things. I did want to point out though that this is the Bible. Up until a year or so ago, archaeologically, we were still using this. This is the historic places of Pasco County, Alice Hall, Eddie Herman, and James Horgan. And it really, pretty much every database you find will go back to this. Also, as I mentioned, Rosemary Trotman. And I wanted to mention the Historic Preservation Committee because they did not meet during COVID. And Ernie and I went to meet with them for their first meeting back in 2022, late in 2022. And they seemed okay about this. But at that time, it was Michael Sherman actually from the city. But the Historical Advisory Committee was wonderful. I mentioned Susan. Another person that we really got to know was Jean Ward. Actually, Ernie got to know her quite well because there are about 4 Ward houses on Church Street. And they also all have a signature brick configuration. And Ernie comes from a construction family, so every time he went out there to photograph, he did all the photography, he would run into Jean and they would chat about things. But she was really invaluable. The Historic Preservation Committee does have a wonderful list of the historic houses, and we have certainly built upon that and used that as an important resource. And that brings me to, I really wanted Melody Floyd from the Chamber. She was, I think, our 4th person we brought in. We needed Melody because Melody is responsible for that marvelous historic house tour, which you'll see right on historical houses. So Melody? Yeah, that'd be great.
Hello. I've been at the Chamber for about 16 years, and I love Dade City. I grew up here, so history was very important growing up here throughout the years. And the Chamber had a historic Dade City walking tour that had been created by Phyllis Smith a long time ago at the Chamber. And when I went to her and started talking to her, I'm like, there is so much on here out of the 35 stops that we need more information on. So that was my task when I first started there 16 years ago, was to update this historic walking tour. And we use it as people walk into town. It goes from the Chamber up Church Street, back down Meridian to the Chamber. And it shows you and talks a little bit about the different homes and the historic homes that are along that path. It's a mile tour. That was the way to get people to walk around town in Dade City to start learning about a history. And when Madonna started this, it just blew my mind, because this is something we have needed for all these years to be able to do, to preserve downtown and to get the word out about our charming town. So I was just absolutely honored to be able to be a part of this and give a little bit of input, and also learn so much more that I had no idea of. Learning through the years, there's some of the stops that we talked about including, that we felt. So as we were going along, we used 5A at the Chamber to get some of the old historic pictures and everything. And we started creating, before COVID, we started creating a little tour book that we would have the old pictures about 10, 20 years later, and new pictures so people could see as they were walking around. And then COVID hit, and our attention turned to just doing the Dade City Historic Walking Tour for more information. But that's a project that we don't need to go any further with, because now we have this wonderful project of the self-guided tour.
So our focus was not so much on the houses as it was on the buildings, but Melody allowed us to put the chart right here so you can see it. We were thinking maybe phase 2 or 3 for we would pull in more houses for the tour. Eric Baker was helpful in he was working on the Dade City Wire, the prototype newspaper, which was wonderful. But he put together about 35 or so of our videos and really did a lot of consulting with us. I don't know how this fell into our laps, but Lynn Tepper, circuit judge, marvelous. She and I had worked on several projects with the school board, and I just adore working with her. She's fun and lively. She wanted to edit this project. Who in their wildest imagination gets a circuit judge who's nationally known? You heard work on trauma-informed care with kids is nationally known. She edited the whole darn thing. The only thing is, you'll learn about Britt in a minute, we about drove Britt nuts because we couldn't figure out the Google apps. We'd be working at 2 a.m. It's like, did you get my edits? I got your edits, but I don't know how to read them. So Britt kept us calm. She lives in Michigan, and she's not here tonight. You'll hear a little bit more about her, but she was invaluable. The other thing she was essential about, I know Alex is shaking his head because she's your godmother, isn't she? She knew about the government buildings. When we got to the Robert Sumner building, sometimes known as the second courthouse and everything, she would just flat say, Madonna, you got it totally wrong, you know, because I was there and I remember this, and so then we would go back and revisit things. It was just really good because she had worked in so many of those buildings. And about maybe 9 or 10 months into this, we had several stops that really showed quite a bit of diversity. There's a remarkable amount of diversity in Dade City over time. But, you know, a really important part of our population is the African American population, and they have contributed so much and been through some struggles. And so I went to Imani. Imani has written a book about African Americans in Hernando County. We've worked together with the Historical Society for a number of years. So I literally sent the thing over to Imani and I said, what do you think? And he was not shy. He sent me a list of stops that needed to be added to enrich this, and he's helped us a lot. So I wanted him to say a few words. This is Imani Esquire.
Good evening. My name is Imani Asakilia. I'm a native of Brooksville. So I'm married into a Dade City family. Mr. Andrew Lewis's family. I married his daughter Angela. So I've been here about 30 years. And so I've been learning myself about the community. I used to write a community column for the Hernando Tribune. And then I wrote a column for the Pasco Tribune about African American experience here in the Dade City area. So in my learning process, I came to a few things that really interest me, but I just want to share one with you tonight. And it's so timely in the sense that we'll be celebrating Veterans Day tomorrow. And you know, I wanted to talk about the role that the veterans played, the black veterans played, in shaping and forming the modern black Dade City community. And I want to set this story by the Hopper Mickens subdivision. So when these black soldiers came back from war in Europe and different places like that, they wanted to change the lives that they had left here, the experiences they had. There was no adequate housing for blacks in the Dade City area. So with the end of the war and the closing of the German POW camp right there in Dade City across from the cemetery, these guys formed the Negro Civic Association, or the Dade City Civic Association, and they petitioned the city of Dade City to sell them and divide up the land into plots so that they could have a place to build their home. So when you go across the track across from the cemetery there in Dade City, that's the Hopper Mickens subdivision. And Mr. Mickens is technically, in my opinion, from my studies, is one of the most prolific educators in the history of the state of Florida, who was tutored by Mary McLeod Bethune. She picked him up as a kid in middle school, took him through her high school, took him through her junior high school, and then eventually he went back and got a bachelor's degree. So that subdivision, those men were responsible for that, for where the Moore Mickens School is located. They petitioned the city for that property and for where Naomi Jones Park is located. So, but veterans were in that, and they were a part of it. Even the Main Street cleaner of George Rawls, who was a presser in Honolulu, he was only in the Navy for about 11 months before the war ended. And he came back and brought those skills and opened Main Street Cleaners. It's mostly known as James Irvin, but it was George Rawls who had the skills, and him and James Irvin worked together. I'm excited that Madonna and the team would allow me to come in and make some suggestions to the tour. I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you.
It was really invaluable. Also, Mr. Mickens was the first commissioner, first black commissioner, wasn't he, and his wife?
Yeah, and a couple of weeks ago, they had a presentation here at the Pasco Historical Society on Chester Taylor. And by my research, we were in what you call a Mid-8 Atlantic Conference. So that was Brooksville, that was Dade City, Inverness, Bellevue, Webster, Dunellen, and maybe a couple other schools in there. Mr. Mickens was the only one, when they desegregated the schools, to remain as principal of his school. All of the other guys lost their jobs as principals, and they were given some insignificant title and things. But Mr. Mickens stayed a principal from 1933 when he came here to 1976 when he retired.
The other day when we were doing the planning for this, and Amani was very humble. He goes, "I don't need to speak." I go, "Oh, yes, you do. You're really important." I go, "Besides, Mickens won the state basketball championship." And he goes, "No." They won the baseball state championship 3 times. And I go, "Oh, well." That's the kind of editing we really needed. Okay, so along the tour, the next person, Stephanie, actually Mary Catherine said, this needs to be like a Ken Burns tour with a rustic pioneer voice. We need somebody that has that melodious, that charm that you want to listen to, like you're, listening to your uncle or something. And she goes, "I got somebody for you, Wayne Sweat." Wayne I worked with Wayne a lot on Wesley Chapel. He is an extraordinary historian. He's volunteered here for years and years and years, and he's a reenactor as well. But he recorded he's recorded every stop except one. The police chief recorded that one because he wanted to record it. But Wayne is going to share with you. You will hear as you go through this. We're going to play one of them for you tonight. But Wayne, he bared with us, and he had these scripts, and he recorded all of them for us. And we wanted him to share. He told us along the way, as he was recording these, he goes, "Oh, I remember this," and it was just so neat. So Wayne, you're up.
Well, this has been truly an amazing time for me. As I was born here in 1943, and I just saw so much take place, and this has just been an amazing experience, and all these wonderful people here have just done a job it's just been unbelievable. And I'm going to share with you about John Lewis Jack Bromley's shoe shop. It was a shop that was located at the corner of Pasco and 8th Street in Dade City from 1913 to 1930. I was real close friends with his son, who was Fred Bromley. Bromley was born in Winchester, Virginia in 1850. During childhood, he moved to the Midwest from Iowa to Kansas. After working as a farmhand, he learned the skills of a shoemaker. He married Minnie Ray Rosella on May the 21st, 1888 in Hiawatha, Kansas. A Lausanne Journal post of January 2nd, 1903 states, one of the most reliable shoe repairs that can be found. In 1905, the Kansas Standard of March 31st, 1905 states that Jack Bromley's shoe shop caught on fire and only the prompt work of a few men who were nearby saved the building. The Ocala Banner of April 12, 1912 foretells of Bromley's possible move to Florida. A letter from Mr. J. Bromley of Lausanne, Kansas says that the past winter has been long and severe. Last year the crops were almost a failure. If we do not get a crop this year, we will surely be in tough luck. After getting his wife Minnie and son Fred was the one that I knew. Fred had a watch repair shop and a clock repair shop in Zephyr Hills for 45 years. However, they lived on Lake Pasadena for all that time. A letter from Mr. J. Bromley, Jack Bromley, to Lausanne, Kansas says that the past winter has been long and severe. Last year the crops were almost a failure. If we do not get a crop this year, we will surely be in tough luck. After getting his wife Minnie and son Fred settled in their home on Fort King Road, he opened a shoe repair business which he operated for over 17 years. He closed the shop at age 80 in 1930 in downtown Dade City. The shop was moved to his son Fred Bromley's property on Pasadena Road. It remained there until donated by Fred's widow and two daughters to the Pioneer Florida Museum and Village in the summer of 1990. Many area residents were familiar with the late Fred Bromley, who operated a watch repair in Zephyr Hills for 42 years. When Fred retired, there was a lot of people that had brought, over the years, had brought clocks and watches to him to repair, and they never came back for him. Whenever he retired, his wife, Pearl, called me up and wanted to know what she was going to do with all these clocks. I said, how many you got? She said, I've got 300 clocks. And so I told her, I said, the best thing you can do is just put a notice in the paper for people to come, please come claim their clocks. So just forget the bill, just come get your clocks. And so a few people did, but when it was done with, after 3 months notice in the paper, she had so many clocks left. If you're at their house, she kept them all running to keep in good shape. You never heard so many gongs in your life. That's to make you sad. In 1905, the Kansas Standard on March 31st, 1905 states that Jack Bromley's shoe shop caught on fire and only the prompt work of a few men who were nearby saved the building. That was in Dade City. The Ocala Banner of April 12, 1912 foretells of Bromley's possible move to Florida. A letter from Mr. M.J. Bromley of Lausanne, Kansas says that the past winter has been long and severe. Last year the crops were almost a failure. If we do not get a crop this year, we will surely be in tough luck. After getting his wife Minnie and son Fred, our friend and the father of the lady that donated the shop, Fred settled in their home on Fort King Road. He opened his shoe repair business, which he operated for over 17 years. He closed the shop at age 80 in 1930 in downtown Dade City. The shop was moved to his son Fred Bromley's property on Pasadena Road. It remained there until donated by Fred's widow and two daughters to the Pioneer Florida Museum and Village in the summer of 1990. Many area residents were familiar with the late Fred Bromley, who operated a watch repair in Zephyr Hills for 42 years. Dade City already had a wonderful clock and watchmaker, the neighbor family, the Myron neighbor, that had a shop downtown here. The shop was moved to his son Fred Bromley's property on Pasadena Road. It doesn't say anything about how it moved, but Fred always relayed the story to me. It was moved by a team of mules. They put wheels on it and moved it from Dade City out to Lake Pasadena where they live. The shop was moved to his son Fred Bromley's property on Pasadena Road. It remained there until donated by Fred's widow and two daughters to the Pioneer, Florida Museum and Village in the summer of 1990. Many area residents were familiar with the late Fred Bromley, who operated watch repair at Zephyr Hills for 42 years. I think I already said that. Historian Carol Jeffers Hedman wrote of the lively pioneer exhibit at the museum. The cobbler had long ceased inside the old shop until a Spring Hill retiree volunteered to show folks the way shoes used to be made. Donald Dust and his wife Carol were regulars at the Bromley Shoe Repair Shop, demonstrating the old-fashioned method of making shoe patterns. The shop sat empty until the Dust stumbled upon it. Dust started as an apprentice shoe pattern maker in 1949 with Brown Shoe Company in St. Louis. He retired 45 years later from the U.S. Shoe Company in Cincinnati as a product developer supervisor. Once Dust saw the vacant Bromley shop, he immediately began volunteering his time to show the vanishing trade of designing and cutting shoe patterns by hand. For several years, Dust used the last, a shoe form on which he designed patterns, and later transferred them to a paper pattern for guests at the museum. Following Bromley, near the location where Bromley Shoe Repair Shop was located in Dade City, Charlie McCullough and his wife, Roxy McCullough, opened a shoe repair and bicycle shop with his wife, Roxy McCullough. They remained at the location for nearly 50 years. When somebody started visiting Dade City, usually they stayed a long time. Curious to the shoe shop business, the McCulloughs also experienced a fire at the shoe shop in 1963. The fire department concluded the fire, which nearly took the shop, was caused by a strike of lightning during a storm. It was, however, revealed that shoe repair shops typically had a supply of flammable oils and polishes. At the Pioneer Museum and Village, the Bromley Shoe Repair Shop is available to walk through and peruse the various shoemaking and shoe repair tools and apparatus. Mr. Bromley was an amazing man. He was one of the finest men with knowledge of gun making. He could do anything. He collected them, and he donated a lot of stuff to the museum. If you walk out back, you'll see his shoe shop, of course, but you see his hen house and a storage building out there. They just made some very generous donations to the museum, and he was an amazing man. So that's just one of the 65 or 70 stories that are told on the
82.
I know, 82.
Yeah, and it was a pleasure doing them, and you're a very patient man. I'll say that. Thank you so much.
The other day, I'm sorry because I am kind of windy on the writing. Mary Catherine was like, we're trying to get Chief Walter's thing shipped to Britt, okay?
His
It's
audio recording.
It's an audio recording, and Mary Catherine goes, it's 23 minutes! And I go,
It was
well,
a text message. I didn't say it like that.
I'm sorry. No, and I was like, I know, some of these things. We are going to do a lot of editing on this, but you will hear stories like that where it's pretty involved, and so bear with us. Because, I think particularly with Wayne, you feel like you get to know the people, and that's kind of fun. Okay, the last person, and then I'm going to sit down. So we're into this whole project, and I think it was probably, I don't know, maybe a year ago. I went to Margaret and Mary Catherine, and I go, we are never going to get this up if we don't get a technology person. Of course, we had Eric, but he was kind of doing other stuff. He was doing the newspaper, and then he left us to do some other stuff. And we're like, oh, what are we going to do? And so, where would you find somebody like this? And so I kind of, went around looking, and the Main Street of Zephyr Hills said, we have this great guy, Britton Janning. He did our website. He's done some other work in Zephyr Hills. Give him a call. So I literally gave him a call, and we convinced him to come on board, and he, oh, it really, and if you go to the Florida stories, you'll see they do have their own apps. We think our app's prettier than theirs. But he designed this whole thing with all the sequence, and that's really what you hear about tonight, is to learn how to use it. You can check it out, you can use it on your phone, whatever, and Brett will be here to show us. He's going to stay with us and help us, because other than Mary Catherine, I don't think any of us knew what we were doing with technology, did we, Margaret? We did not. I don't mean to throw us all under the bus, but we really. So Brett has really, he has been incredibly patient. And he's going to take you through this, answer questions and that kind of thing. So Britt and Janny. And if you need a tech person, you need a, oh.
Thank you. I just want to time out for a moment because I know, Alex, you need to go. Like I mentioned briefly in the beginning, this whole idea came to me because of my incredible neighbors, Dennis and Nancy Alfonso. And since this, Dennis has passed away, and he was just an incredible person, and Nancy wasn't able to be here, and their son Alex is here. So we wanted to dedicate this to Dennis Alfonso, and we just wanted to ask Alex to come up and just maybe say a few words, and just know that, I mean, if anyone knew Dennis here, which I'm sure a lot of you did, he was just an incredible member of our community, Main Street program, lawyer, and so anyway, Alex, if you could just say a few words, we appreciate it.
Well, I will try and say a few words, because I feel just the incredible knowledge that everybody else who has been speaking before me, I do not feel qualified to say anything in front of you people. But thanks and gratitude and love, because I know, having many conversations about this app and being in Dade City for my entire life, you know, I've always felt like there is this disconnect, because I know that there's this rich history from my family and from the McLeans and from just the conversations that we would have together. And when I was in high school, we used to call Dade City Dead City, because we thought that there was nothing exciting to do and no history, no like substance. And I think just Mary Catherine and Donna and Margaret and everybody in this project is proving me wrong, because this is so just poignant and moving. And you talked about having the diamonds, you know, underneath the history of this town. I feel like this is like the diamond necklace that's connecting all of these pieces together. And I just, so much love to Mary Catherine, and I know how deeply my parents feel. You know, they're really honored that you would say those. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for being here.
Take some of these.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
All right, so here's the idea. The idea is there's two ways you can do this. You can sit on your couch at home in your air conditioning, drinking your glass of wine, your glass of milk, whatever it is that you like to drink. And you can just start on number 1, and you can go through all 82. You can go through 26, whatever it is you want to do. You can go through the tours, and you can learn about our history. Or we are going to have these window clings that will be in the merchants' windows of downtown. So these will be in the windows, and then each stop has a dedicated QR code. So the merchants' windows will have the QR code per stop with the decal. And you'll just be bopping down the street, and you'll be like, oh, what is this? I need to put my phone on it, and it will pick up the QR code, and then that QR code will bring you to the stop on our website. So that stop will then pick up the video that has been made with the voiceover of Wayne Sweat, and we'll have some pictures tied into it, and you'll be told a story. So if you're in downtown by the courthouse, you'll scan the QR code, or if you're on your couch drinking your martini or your glass of tea or whatever it is you're having, you can sit there and learn about the history of Dade City. So we wanted to make this user-friendly, and Britt did an incredible job on the tour, on the website, because I was like, I'm just going to go on iMovie, I'm going to make these videos, it's going to be great, and of course, you know, the 955,000 other things I have going on. Madonna saw that it was not happening. So we brought in Britt, and he really helped bring us in, and as you can see, here's the way the stops go. And we're going to play one of the stops for you just so you can have an idea of what you can do. And which one are we going to do, the POW?
Number 11, yeah.
Okay, number 11. So you'll go on, you'll click the stop, and so this is a QR only, this is a code only because there isn't an actual location of this. There is going to be a way, we're hopeful with help of the city on some of the locations where the buildings don't exist. We might have a placard or something with the QR code that you can scan, and then we can go down to the video. And
Oh, and all of the stops too, if they do have a location, there will be an address, and this is linked in there. So if you need directions directly to the stop, you can use the map here, and it'll take you there, just like Google Maps or Apple Maps.
And our judge, Lynn Tepper, said, you know, we need to have a briefing from the chief of police about safety. So that's our first on the page. So here you go, you can click on this video.
Stop 11. World War II Prisoner of War Camp. Visit 38122 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, just south of Moore Mickens Educational Center, now the location of Pyracantha Park, and history will overtake your being from all trajectories. Let's start with the contemporary setting. The space is now named for Naomi Jones, who was an early leader of the local NAACP and an activist. She operated the Jones Nursing Home, also a historical site, with her husband Otis for over 20 years. Her breadth of service included astonishing landscaping with her garden club, the Busy Bees, in which she planted over 50 trees, dozens of azaleas, and magnificently colorful pyracanthus. The incredible irony so evident solemnizes the magnificent park for the accomplishments of Jones and contemporaries of the Jim Crow South, but also a site of the historic yet short-lived event in Dade City history, a German POW camp. Yes, a POW camp, known as Company 7 of Camp Blanding. The history of the POW camp in Dade City was overlooked for decades until the industrious efforts of Eva Martha Goddard Knapp. An English teacher at Hernando High School, Knapp assigned her 10th grade students to read a trendy youth literature novel entitled The Summer of My German Soldier by Betty Green, which also metamorphosed into a trendy television special. The novel was a hit, and with Miss Knapp guided students during the 1991-92 school year, youth eagerly uncovered stories of the mysterious Dade City POW camp. They interviewed family members and acquaintances that were old enough to remember the POWs, and later tracked down Ludwig Herder in Germany for correspondence. Luckily, Knapp was an active member of the Pasco Historical Association and Pioneer Museum, and with the help of historians Eddie Herman, Bill Dayton, and Dr. Charles Arnaud, they further documented the German POW camp. Then Chamber of Commerce Director Phyllis Smith, her grandfather was a foreman at Pasco Packing at the time of the POW camp, also assisted. Smith recalls seeing the prisoners and talking with her grandfather about them. She kept a wooden jewelry box that one of the prisoners carved from scrap wood as a thank you for the benevolent treatment which Smith inherited. It bears the name Hans Bader. The team created a video entitled Humanity Through Barbed Wire, which was unveiled at the St. Petersburg Holocaust Museum in 2004. Herman, along with James Horgan and Alice Hall wrote The Historical Places of Pasco County in 1992, which is still most widely cited in archaeologic documentation for historic preservation. Barnard summarized, Dade City was somewhat removed from the war, except for those families who had sons and daughters in the armed forces, and the unexpected establishment of a branch prison camp on the very outskirts of town in 1944, with a prisoner population of about 350, brought the war close to home. Dade City got news of the camp after the arrival via an article in the Dade City Banner on April 14, 1944. Mayor Frank M. Ashbrook handled the quiet and rapid construction of the camp with the Army Corps of Engineers so as not to cause panic. Simultaneous to Ashbrook's effort in Dade City, a total of 22 POW camps were hurriedly erected for POWs around the state of Florida. Most, if not all, of the prisoners of war in Dade City came from Erwin Rommel's Africa Corps. The camp existed 2 years and housed a regular average of 300 prisoners. In September 1945, there were 350, the first arriving in spring 1944. They stayed beyond the end of the war in Europe, and the last prisoners left in January of 1946. Retired Dade City property attorney Clyde Hobby remembered vividly the last troops who left. Attired in their German military uniforms as they marched in formation before climbing aboard the passenger car at Seaboard Coastline Depot. It left an indelible memory that Hobby related. Prisoners were employed at Pasco Packing Company, Commerce Optics Company, and McDonald Mines near Brooksville. They received 80 cents a day in stamps and rations. Historian Arnaud